Welcome back. Friday, April 10th, 2026. I am Seth Leibsohn. In that, it is a Friday, and it's always a good Friday around here, sometimes with a capital G as it was last week, now with last week, and now with 2 weeks ago, now with the lowercase g, but with a capital G for George Khalaf. George Khalaf joins us. Khalaf is how he spells his name. I spell it for you because you want to go to his website, georgekhalaf.com, to learn more about him and help him out, because he is not only a premier political consultant and polling guru, he is an active participant in the political process. He is running for the Arizona State House of Representatives in Legislative District 3, and whether you live there or not, you want him in the State House, because he will be arguing, debating, and voting up and down and sponsoring laws for the entire state. George, welcome back.
Good to be on with you, Seth. And it was last week, I'm fairly certain, was Good Friday, because this week is Orthodox Good Friday.
That's what threw me off. I was thinking about the Greek and the Orthodox. And yes, it's hard to keep it all straight.
So this Sunday is Orthodox Easter.
There you go. Cue the funny William Buckley story about the pre-Gregorian calendar and that student who shows up a week late to school. Okay, George, I say good to see you, but it's kind of fun when in public events in the community I run into you, and you can almost predict the ones where I will run into you, but they're practically these days the only ones I go to anymore. So maybe it's self-selecting, but I ran into you and Brianna, your bride, last night at a wonderful event. You want to talk about it?
Yeah. So we went to the Arizona Christian University Daniels Award dinner. They were honoring Dr. George Barna, who's one of the premier, if not the most premier, Christian researchers of the last 5 decades. Pioneered a lot of work for a tremendous amount of Christian ministries that folks would know, and he now is based at Arizona Christian University and oversees the Christian Worldview Center. And it was a great event. ACU did a really good job of highlighting their students, their choir. They had students coming to tables and discussing. But I was hoping to unpack a bit with you, Seth, the one of my favorite topics, and very clearly Dr. Barna's favorite topic, which is biblical worldview or Christian worldview, and the idea of worldview and what it means to our politics. You and I spend a lot of time talking about politics and culture. We sometimes use that word, but really what we were talking about is biblical worldview without even naming it as such. But I think it's important to name, and he had some really cool statistics some depressing, about the state of biblical worldview among the masses, but some really cool statistics about the work and the progress that Arizona Christian students, from when they start to when they end, about how tremendously how much tremendous growth there is in biblical worldview among their students.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. Go ahead and give a little bit of a summary of some of that which he was talking about. But there's very few people that do what he does. There's equally very few colleges that do what Arizona Christian does. And to the degree that there aren't enough of them, I think, is to the degree that not just education is at a discount, but so too the development not just of the mind, but of the soul of our young people.
Yeah. And actually, President Len Munsell, who is a very well-known Christian conservative leader in Arizona, was a former candidate for governor. He ran Center for Arizona Policy, now has been the president of Arizona Christian for a long time. He said something that was really important. It wasn't just enough for Arizona Christian, to turn out good, smart students if they were advancing values that were contrary and openly antagonistic to biblical worldview and to God's teaching. They wanted to turn out really good students that advanced God's kingdom. Mm-hmm. And they have done a really good job, and I've actually hired a number of their graduates and had them as interns, of producing students that are really smart in their field. Some have gone on to Harvard and Columbia and different law schools, and among other things as well, now going to the medical field, doctors. And those individuals advance biblical worldview, meaning they advance not just the fact that, you're a Christian or you go to church, but a direct, consistent application of what it means in the Bible for truth, relative to marriage, relative to the understanding of salvation, relative to their perception of God's will and his role in their lives, and the totality of that is sort of biblical worldview and how that applies to our politics and our culture today.
And might I say relevant and relative to their professions.
Yes.
Not just their families or or their friendships or their relationships. One of the wonderful things they did at the event last night was they had students, and students come around and address each table for a few moments about who they are and what they're doing. Two of mine were in the medical sciences, both ideally saying that they wanted to go to medical school. And you just think about I don't know if you had these students. One of these blew my mind because he was talking about his athleticism too, and he was telling me he was a runner. I said, that'll light me up. You're right. I said, what's your best mile? He said 4:30.
Oh,
4:30? 4:30. I spent months trying to get a 7:20. Roger Bannister just by an inch broke the 4:30.
yeah.
So that was its conversation, but on a deeper level, or maybe it's the same level. Wouldn't you want to be operated on in an emergency situation or in any medical situation? Wouldn't you want your doctor to look at you as not just a corporeal body, but a soul as well?
100%. Seth, the older I've gotten and I get, the more drawn I am to individuals who do share my faith and my worldview. Why? Because they do understand me on a deeper level, and I understand them. And while there are bad examples of self-identified Christians doing bad things, I don't want to focus on that because, unfortunately, we do have that. But
everyone's going to do bad things,
but there are tremendous examples. Actually, there was one just recently I read about.
Okay.
A Chick-fil-A worker who was fairly young, if I remember correctly, who found $10,000 in the bathroom and said his first thought when he found that money was, well, what would Jesus have me do? And he was compelled to return the money.
Yeah.
And that's important. We want our kids to grow up and our grandkids it's our number one job to raise them in that way. But then if they go to college and all of the raising gets undone by progressive academics and academia, as you and I have discussed, or would we rather send them to a school, an institution that is Christian, that is turning out good men and women, not that are just intelligent and provide positive utility to our economy, but actually conduct themselves in the way that God and Christ would have us conduct ourselves? That's important. Of course it is.
Well, it's beautiful that these colleges exist. It's beautiful that there's increased interest in them. People know a lot about Hillsdale. It's interesting. I used to, George, maybe not as much as I used to in the past, but I used to get a lot of parents and high school seniors ask me about advice for college, and I would often help them with, I couldn't do SAT prep, but I could help them with their entrance essays, their college entrance essays, and I used to do that a lot. But I think I would have very different answers now about advice I would give about sending your kids to college. First of all, I'm not so sure college is right for every child, every high school student. I always believe in credentialing up, so if it can be done at the right college, fine. But you know what? I used to counsel get into the best college, the highest rated college you can, shoot for as high as you can. I would no longer give that advice. Then I'd sew my face to the carpet these days. I would start with, look at your Hillsdales, look at your Grove Cities, look at your GCUs, look at your Arizona Christians. Okay, so they're not top 20 by numbers, but you'll be a better person in 4 years.
Yeah. So Seth, I've always been a big believer, and quickly on this before the next segment, I've always been a big believer that many things in life is what you make of them, meaning that you could have someone who is at an amazing college who absolutely does disastrous because they don't apply themselves, they choose to get in their own way and all that, or you could have someone who is really good at a so-so college and they can excel. For example, I went to Arizona State University. It was a good experience, but I made it what it ended up being. I mean, ASU afforded me a lot of opportunities, but I did conservative things. I went to church. Like, I insulated myself to a degree, but unfortunately that's not how everyone's mind works. And so to your point, I absolutely will be counseling our children as they get older to not just go to a place that is wholesome and that is Christian. That's important in K-12. That's going to be important in higher education, but a place that complements them, but a place that is wholesome, that promotes not just goodness, again, in economic terms, but goodness in actual sort of like religious and moral terms too. And that is something we have forgotten.
Absolutely. Because we've forgotten what the purpose of education is. which is not just educating a man in the mind, but educating a man in the morals and the soul, as Teddy Roosevelt said. That really was the original purpose of education, and we've lost that. George Khalaf is my guest, Khalaf, candidate for State House of Representatives. And we're going to have a Lionel Richie hour. Wonderful. Be right back. I was asking for Lionel Richie today. I should say, first of all, coming to you from the YRefi.com studios, I'm Seth Leibsohn. George Khalaf is my guest. You know what put me in mind of Lionel Richie? I asked for Lionel Richie music this hour. I'll tell you why, George. It was from something about last night. I ran into some dear old family friends. You know who they are. And my parents have known them forever, knew their parents. Their daughter and I grew up together, and their daughter loved Lionel Richie. And I was remembering when his song All Night Long came out. It was when I think we were in the 8th grade or something like that. She was just all about that song, Robin. We'll save the last names, although they hopefully know who they are. Wonderful people. You know them as well. But that's what put me in a Lionel Richie mood. It's nice, there's the psalm that says how wonderful it is when brethren can dwell together in community, and that's what a night like last night was, too. It's nice just being in a room where, I don't know how many people were there, 300-400, something like that.
Yeah.
Where they're all directed in a rightly direction.
Yes.
All there for a right and good purpose. You go to a lot of different galas in town, and God knows there's a lot of great causes in town. But everyone else also, it's probably fair to say, has different reasons for being there and maybe even different agendas. Yeah. Some good, most good. Not at a thing like last night. You're there just to help these students get an education, and a good one.
Yeah.
I just love...
I agree with you.
Yeah, I just love that psalm about how beautiful it is when brethren dwell together in unity. I can do it in Hebrew. Hine tova ma'anaim shevet gam yahad. I just love that point.
Yeah, I already was blessed and of course attended events prior to the campaign, but it is on overdrive, as you can imagine. To the point that you made in terms of running into each other, it's because I seemingly am everywhere that you possibly could run into me. But there is nothing for me like going to an event where I know, if not everybody, the vast majority of people are Christian, they're believers, they understand, we share a similar worldview, there's friendly faces, familiar faces. Look, it's important to also be in places where you may be the lone Christian voice and you conduct yourself in a certain way. God calls us to do that because he called us to go out and disciple. And that was actually a big part of last night, was tracking like ACU is creating discipleships. But going to places like last night also it refuels me. I mean, being around people refuels me. I'm an extrovert, so the more I'm around people, the more energy I get. I understand that that's not
me, but it is you. We are a little water and oil, the two of us.
Yeah, but especially when it's with brothers and sisters of the faith and people who know Brianna very well, because Brianna spent a good chunk of her career in ministry, in various ministries over the years that in sort of in the Christian space, and it's just filling, right? Like the phrase you have your cup filled. Mm-hmm. For me, nights like last night fills my cup. Yeah. Reminds me of why I do what I do. Hearing stories like Dr. Barnes and how he started his career to where he is today is just encouraging. There's just no way about it.
Yeah, he encourages about life generally, which is what I think anyone of faith should be doing. They should be encouraging their fellow human beings, their fellow human beings, whether they are of faith or not.
Yeah.
I've been thinking all week actually about the Bible in education, or faith in education. George, I'd like to run this by you. Can we just stay on it another few moments? There's it might be something that confronts you when you're in the legislature. There's a big debate going on. The New York Times had a big story on a debate going on in Texas right now, Texas Education Agency, where they are working on changing the curriculum to include the Bible. And along other things I saw, like Frederick Douglass and Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. And as you can imagine, there is big resistance to including the Bible in the curriculum. And I'm just sitting here thinking, what have we come to where we can teach Reverend Martin Luther King's speech, which really was a sermon, laden with references to the Bible, including the prophets and Amos and Thank God Almighty. Or Frederick Douglass, who didn't give a speech without probably 10 references to the Bible throughout and talking about God. So we're okay as a society teaching these speeches as if the content of them is not to be understood by the students. Well, might a student want to know what that reference is? Well, we can't look at what that reference is because it comes from the Bible. Do we realize how asinine this view of pedagogy has become? We can teach the retail, but not the wholesale. C.S. Lewis, I've been quoting it all week, says we are demanding the function by removing the organ. You can't teach Reverend Martin Luther King or any of his speeches, or Frederick Douglass or any of his speeches, without knowing what he is talking about. What is he referencing? And that thing is the thing you're not allowed to teach.
Of course, because you know what the Bible does? The Bible, for those that not just don't understand it or don't believe in it, that openly oppose it, is a mirror to them, to their souls, to the things that they are afraid of the most, in being wrong, in having to submit themselves to someone who's not them. They themselves are the king, and so they look at those speeches because they can cherry pick what they want from them, and it feels fluffy and nice.
Right.
But there's depth in the Bible. There's truth. There are things that are so difficult that, for example, the only way to the Father is through me, or it's harder to get to heaven as a rich man than it is for a camel to go through the head of a needle, and a million other things in the Old and New Testaments. And so to me, and again, I like that. I don't know that I've used it before, the metaphor. The Bible is a mirror. If they look at themselves too much, or at their souls, or the state of their souls, or their desire to not submit to anyone but themselves, because that is what the world teaches, is that you are your own God. But obviously that is in direct contradiction to what we know is true. So it's not surprising, but of course it is asinine, Seth. And they're afraid. They're afraid of what the Bible will do to generations to come, that they have tried to very carefully dismantle. And that course has started to reverse in a big way, and they are terrified of what that means.
You took it very high, at a high level, and that's where it belongs. But as you were speaking, it dawned on me, how many common phraseologies do we use every day that people have no idea come from the Bible? I had to pull this up. A man after my own heart, 1 Samuel 13. Flesh and blood, Matthew, Galatians, Ephesians. A fly in the ointment, Ecclesiastes. The root of the matter, Job 19. This too shall pass, gosh knows. Give up the ghost. The blind leading the blind, Luke 6:39. One of my favorites is the writing on the wall, ripe old age, Genesis 35, wolf in sheep's clothing, seeing eye to eye, Isaiah. I could go on and on and on. Move mountains. The Bible has been so instructive on everything, of course, you said, but also on everything in the English language that we say day to day without even thinking
everything,
about
period, not just linguistics. Right. So much of our everyday life up until
washing your hands of the
20 years ago, 100%.
Right. We could go
came
on.
from the Bible, came from the Word.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about some other politics going on in the nation and the state this week, George. George Khalaf is my guest, georgekhalaf.com, Khalaf, pollster, political consultant, and candidate for Legislative District 3, State House of Representatives. Coming to you from the YRefi.com studios, YRefi refinances distressed or defaulted private student loans that others won't touch. And YRefi can reduce your monthly payment, ensuring affordability and financial relief. And guess what? They don't care what your credit score is. And you can save thousands of dollars by refinancing and even lowering your total costs with YRefi. If your private student loan debt is keeping you up at night and ruining your life, it doesn't have to. Just call YRefi, 888-YRefi-85, or check them out online at yrefy.com, yrefy.com. A big week in national and international news, George, and a lot of debates over the situation with Iran, and a lot of debates that have really come to come into sharp relief with the podcasting community and the president. The president put out a scorcher against some of them yesterday. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I did.
And it raises a question I've been raising, which is I'm not even sure how much of the audience of some of these podcasters at issue is conservative anymore. I mean, it would have been at one time. My guess is the majority of them are no longer really part of the conservative movement. They might not even be Americans. So far have they wandered from being America first, but even conservative, saying conservative things. They're saying very odd and very strange and different things, and it's weird. And I think that it was right Trump put his foot down on it. And I saw some polling on it that Harry Enton did at on CNN, which I can play for the audience or you later. But I just love your take on, the internal conservative pugilism.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the problem, I mean, some of the specific podcasters, I don't know, there's multiple reasons why the president was frustrated with each of them. I would say that in general there is a rise, and there's even debate around this. Right? I'm not saying there's not, but there is a rise of folks that are just questioning everything, and I think that's the part we've really never been the party that is like, not that we haven't questioned things, but there's an entire segment that questions orthodoxy, if folks know what I mean by that, like things that are just the way that they have been. Questions any institution, right? But they're willing to question literally any institution on planet Earth. It's not even just about government anymore or big business, anything that feels too put together. And that is frightening because there are end objectives there that are no good. And I'll say one more thing, and there has been a lot of also commentary about this. That's why it's always important for me. And again, some of these podcasters do have this and some don't, and so it's not a perfectly neat
right. It's not
thing. But
there's right honeycombs here.
You have to. If you question everything, but you don't do it from a Christian framework, it is super dangerous, because then it is going to border on nihilism, if not get to full nihilism, because you literally just want to burn everything to the ground. Nihilism meaning
you're about
nothing
destruction,
is good.
not a construction.
Right? Like you just are going to tear everything apart. And of course, the president's going to feel that very specifically, because a lot of them are openly going after him specifically on foreign policy. And that's really the crux of the debate is what are we doing with Iran? Was this in America's interest or not? And so the who owns the America First label is, I think, the biggest debate. And I don't know if it's going to be sorted out in President Trump's presidency, because he is such a larger-than-life personality. There's a lot of people that's no matter what, there's going to be an allegiance there. Where it's going to be sorted out is in the next election, is in our next nominee and president, of who owns that mantle better, who has a very clear message about the future of that movement, and they will be the ones who are able to coalesce. But we're at least 2 to 4 years away, I think, from beginning to figure that out, let alone settle it.
My sense of Donald Trump is, I think we've talked about this, is that he's now going for legacy. He wants to do the things that no one else was willing to do or had the courage to do because of election consequences. My sense is he, at this point, well, he would obviously like a majority, is doing things for history's sake. And not for history's sake because of history's sake, but for history's sake because it's the right thing to do, and this is the last best chance and opportunity to do it. The lessons of that, I take instruction from the lessons of Ronald Reagan, who did so much good, but did one thing not good, which was protect his legacy. As you say, it's America First now, the Reagan coalition then, by turning over the mantle to someone who could not carry what he built forward. And it led to pretty much a long-term absence of leadership they gave us 8 years of Bill Clinton. The lesson being, pick your successor wisely, I think. We can talk about that one.
And that leadership matters.
George Khalaf is my guest. We'll be right back. Oh, yeah, I love that one. Dancing on the Ceiling? Wonderful. You just can't be sad when you listen to an upbeat Lionel Richie song. It's him or the Commodores. So great. Welcome back to the Seth Leibsohn Show, brought to you by CMI Gold and Silver. people are turning to gold and silver in looking to protect their wealth with real, tangible, hard assets that are also easy to liquidate. And that's why I so heartily recommend my friends at CMI Gold and Silver. Been doing so for a while now. Low premiums, great customer service. Check them out. Excuse me. Check them out on their website at cmigs.com, or give them a call where you'll always be speaking with a non-commissioned broker. In business for more than 50 years, headquartered in Phoenix, still owned by the same family. They are now the nation's oldest precious metals firm, cmigs.com. George Khalaf is my guest. George, let me talk to you about something else that I think is emblematic of America First, because I think it's defining of making America great again. I don't know if we can separate those mottos, although feel free to if you want to. I always thought of them as basically the same side of the same coin. There was this kind of down market view of America within America, kind of this view of managing the decline, and our greatest days were behind us and leading from behind, and kind of this looking down of our shoes, America can't quite do anything right. That I just have noticed over the past few months has been totally upended. I started noticing it with Jack Hughes and the Olympic hockey team, and how we were all filled with such pride about, we're USA, we're proud to be Americans, we can do this. It was like the Miracle on Ice all over again. I loved that little kid at the launch of the Artemis. Did you see that little kid, Hilt Bowling, when CNN asked him, why are you here? He's fifth grader. And he says, because we're going to the moon, that's why. Did you see that kid? That wonderful excitement, the ability to excite a fifth grader, an 8-year-old, the ability to excite an 8-year-old with American achievement, the Artemis mission itself, the wonderful statements we're getting from Victor Glover, that astronaut who's, not afraid to talk about God and the beauty of, seeing God's existence and giving us an Easter message, that we can pull this off. Even more banausic things like the extraction of Maduro, just doing that without losing an American life, or the destruction of a 47-year-old terrorist enemy. We're in a can-do, American can-do-it again kind of mode, an America being made great again, and kind of a shedding off of that dolorous, sleepy, we're all kind of sick and our best days behind us attitude. You see some of this?
Of course I do. Look, I was raised that being able to be proud of something was not a sin. Now, pride and humility have to be balanced, okay? But I was raised that it was okay to be proud, to be an American, to be proud of my origins, to be proud of my faith, to be proud of my work that was immediately in front of me. So from the very small levels that you could get a 7 or 8-year-old to comprehend to the big levels. We're actually doing that with our boys now. The 2 older boys are putting together presentations, PowerPoint presentations of their 10 and 9 of where they'd like to go. They're trying to sell the family of where they'd like to go on a trip this
I want
year.
to hear the nominations.
Well, the 10-year-old wants to go to Chicago, and he's analytical like me, so he's talking about hotel prices and the availability of cribs. He knows what he's doing. The 9-year-old is absolutely focused on dinosaurs, and so his whole selling is he wants to get us to Tampa because there's Dinosaur World
I'm
there.
with your 9-year-old.
But it was less about Tampa for him. It was more about dinos. And I said, hey, I love you, dude, but you got to try to sell about the beaches in Tampa because not everyone's into dinosaurs as much as you are. I bring that up to say we're teaching them to be able to be proud of something, and you should see the look on their faces because it's their work product. So it's a long way to say this. Not only is it okay to be proud to be an American, we should be proud to be Americans. And there has been a lot more now, whether it's hockey, whether it's curling, whether it's our athletics, whether it's some of our politicians, whether it's some people on social media, whether now being in the 250th year anniversary of this country. There's nothing that animates me more. I even find myself sitting up more straight when I talk about this. We should be able to be proud. Look, America's not perfect. No country's perfect, but we are an amazing country. And I'll give one other example. Obviously, baseball. I'm a huge baseball fan. Opening day was a couple of weeks ago, and there was a video that was shared about opening day from Boston in the 50s. Did you see that going around on social media?
Well, you would know my feed is very devoid of sports, so I'm sorry to say I didn't.
Well, they were showing opening day, and everyone, like how we used to fly, everyone was dressed
I saw it.
Right?
I saw it. Yeah,
okay?
I did. Yeah.
Now, what do you think the progressive answer was? Well, in the 50s, we still were doing this bad thing and that bad thing, and we were
Make
still...
America great again as a dog whistle to segregation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the Red Sox were the last team to do this. Those are all, like, again, like the 50s, we had some things that we needed to work on. But that's not the point of the video.
Right.
But they literally cannot be proud of any period of our history, because at any point there was some group of people that did something that was that we wouldn't agree with today.
Right.
But that wasn't the point of the message. The point of the message was America is amazing. And look, I love the president's phrase, we're ushering in the golden age of America. We should be representing ourselves that way, because this is always something that I've been proud of in terms of the way that I've tried to conduct myself is, look, even if I didn't exactly know what I was doing, I was always going to conduct myself with a certain level of oomph. And that is how we should view America. Even if we're not exactly where we want to be today, we have to project where we want to go, and that's projecting optimism and hope and strength in the America that we want, and a love of patriotism, which is not a bad thing.
You didn't get on Mount Rushmore doing the opposite. Every one of those people on Mount Rushmore had that attitude. And I guess I had a relatively related conversation with someone about this point you were making, about those that point out the sins of our past, or even in our recent past. And they tend to revolve around race. Sometimes, but they tend to revolve around bigotry. Sometimes it's racial, sometimes it's ethnic, sometimes it's religious. And some of it is here again now in a way that we thought we'd never see it again. But when I say, look, I'm celebrating America when I'm thinking about some of our great achievements of the past. And I got to tell you, bigotry is inherently un-American. To the degree that you want to point out those sins, and I'm all for pointing them out because I think they need to be pointed out, they were un-American. That I am not thinking about those sins as being part of American greatness. I'm thinking about those things as being departures from what it means to be an American. I don't think you can be a good American and a bigot. I think the entire nature of our founding and the things George Washington said and the things John Adams said and the things our Declaration of Independence stood for were not just a stumbling block, but a rebuke to the entire notion that we should divide people based on anything other than the fact that we're just all children of God and equal in our lowness before Him.
100%. And that flag, our flag, those stars and stripes, that represents the beauty of America, the freedom of America, the liberty that America affords us, the opportunity that America affords. And it has become a symbol of angst from the left, and that means we need to proclaim it and fly it even bolder and scream it even louder, especially to usher in the next 250 years of our country.
I love that so much, and I want people to pay attention to the flags that are being flown at these leftist rallies. Nary do you see an American one, often do you see a terrorist one. That should be instructive. I'm pretty strong on this point. One party has become anti-American, I'm afraid to say. It's not ours. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Seth Leibsohn Show, coming to you from the YRefi.com studios. David, did I give you, this song would not be part of it, but did I give you a little bit of an initiation as to the wonderfulness of Lionel Richie? You were not highly schooled on it, were you?
No, I knew all night long.
That was about it, right?
Yeah.
The body of work is tremendous, just tremendous. And I'm glad if I can encourage you to play more of his music for yourself and for us. That'd be great. Not that song, though. George Khalaf is my guest. KHALAF, GeorgeKhalaf.com, candidate for State House of Representatives, LD3. Close out the show with us, George. Tell us how the campaign's going. What's going on there?
Campaign's going well. We just wrapped up at the end of March. Our first quarter fundraising went very well. Very proud of it. Right now, we're fully in, and we have been, but it increases to a fever pitch. Door knocking, phone calling, postcard writing. We're talking to voters. So I'm trying to be everywhere that I can be. I'm trying to set up meet and greets. I have one tomorrow. We're
Want to announce where and when? Go ahead.
It's in the Fountain Hills area, so if you have any, if you'd like to go and you're in Fountain Hills, let me know. We apparently are so at capacity. There's a wait list, but still, let me know in the chance. We've got lots of events coming up. I'm also in the works. I'll tease this in the works of doing an event that centers around education because it's an issue that I care a lot about, and there's a lot that's going on with it. That's in the district.
I should say you have been tip of the spear for the education freedom, education reform, education choice movement in the state for many years.
Yeah, and Seth, I'll end on this point. Sometimes I would much rather record a video or give a talk or a speech than I would write. That's just I don't know. I can write, but it's not my favorite thing to do. But I have to also be in the right mood. So there was a couple of there was maybe like a 6-day stretch where I didn't record one of my videos for social media, which is long with respect to what I usually do. And I recorded 3 videos in the span of like 20 minutes, just boom, boom, boom. Yeah. One was on parents' rights. It was released. If you haven't seen it, go check it out on my Facebook page. Nothing that we can do. The very few things more important than protecting the most vulnerable, which is our children. The second one was on the Second Amendment, but also on our Arizona constitutional protections on the second on gun rights, Article 2, Section 26. And the third, which I'm very excited about, was about my just 2-minute 2 cents on America 250.
Oh, good.
And what it means, fitting kind of with the prior segment that we just did. I am ecstatic for this summer. There's prayer events that are happening in Fountain Hills and other places. We need to do everything in our power to celebrate America this summer in the way we would celebrate our child's 10th birthday or 18th birthday, like a mile marker. It's a huge mile marker for our nation. I would encourage everyone come alongside my campaign and others to celebrate this great nation. I'm grateful that I, Lord willing, will have the ability to serve the people of District 3 and do my part in advancing our values and God's kingdom in Arizona.
That's wonderful. Hey, David, let's get that video of George on 250 and play it next week. Let's do that. That'd be a good thing to do in and of itself. Thank you, George Khalaf. We have one more hour. Rabbi Alush coming right up. Be right back.